There's a wonderful story I'd like to share with you. It happened many years ago. It's a story of a dream that a dreamer once had, and I shared this story in quite detail in my book, Where We Dreamed a Single Dream. And the dream went like this. The dreamer, she suddenly found herself in a dream in front of a great big mountain, at the foot of a great big mountain. And right there at that place where the mountain was starting to climb up, grew a tree. It was actually like a large bush, which was on fire. But the fire wasn't consuming the tree, and the flames were blue. So there she was standing and looking at this spectacle, which actually frightened her a little. But in that instant, when she was contemplating the vision, she knew that she had to climb to the top of the mountain. Now, the mountain was an extinguished volcano. And the moment she started climbing, the slopes of the mountain actually changed into sand. Not quicksand, but like climbing up a huge sand dune. And she started walking upright initially, but because the journey was so difficult, she ended up crawling on all fours. And she said to me, you know, I made 2 steps forward, but then I slid back about 3 or 4 steps, and there I was, you know, like this, and 2 steps forward and slid back, and it felt to her like she was making the journey for days, if not longer. But she didn't give up. She says, I couldn't give up. I had to go up to the top of the mountain because I felt like this is what I had to do. This is what I needed. This is why I was there. And eventually she made it all the way to the apex. And there, right at the top, she saw the most marvelous sight. She said, the ring of the extinguished volcano, which was a huge volcano, huge extinguished ring. She said the whole thing was lined with people, all different colors and races. And they were all standing, holding each other's hands and looking inward into the center of the volcano. And in that moment of revelation, she awoke. Now, when I pressed her about sharing dreams with me, this was the one that she decided to tell me. Now, when I asked her about the dream, what did she think it meant and so on, she really just shrugged it off and said, well, it's just another dream. And this is where we really are. Not only here in the West, but in the Orient as well. You know, the inner life, the life of the soul, the deeper dimension, because this is not your personal unconscious. She's traveled deeper to the collective unconscious level of the soul, you know, the level of the feminine. And her symbols, you know, the mountain is her symbol, the tree is her symbol, the flame, the color blue, you know, in ancient Egypt, the goddess Nut of the night sky, there was a blue lotus laid at her feet every day. So that's the color of heaven, blue, the blue sky, you know, it's the color of the center, the cosmic axis, which is your really the core of that is your intuition. That's why many people who are quite intuitive gravitate towards the color blue. They might even totally unconsciously drive blue cars or prefer blue clothes, and everything is really to them is blue. Now, when I probed her about it, and I asked her, you know, what do you think the dream means? She kind of shrugged it off. And this is really where we are. as a humanity, not only just like I said, not only in the West but in the Orient. There's completely disregard for the inner life of soul, and we only have this dogged existence, this materialism, this consumerism, and just getting ahead, surviving, and then we accumulate all these things, and as we get older, and our lives start to become meaningless because there's something is missing. Something is completely missing in our life, but we don't know what, and the missing part is the feminine. This is, I've painted this many years ago while I was still in Scandinavia and traveling and looking for the answer to my dreams. And, like I go into my book and in quite detail, it's the image of the soul, the one that was guiding me personally through my journeys, and so that's what I wanted to share with you. And another really important message regarding this dream is that when you live with someone, or if you are yourself, open out the back to this deeper level of our psyche, the collective unconscious, to the soul. And if you have a close relationship to someone, it jumps. It will, the archetypal images will start to open up the other person to the experience. And this is what happened to the dreamer, because the dreamer was my ex-wife, and she lived, of course, we lived together, for a long time. And during that time when she had the experience, I was deeply involved in my own inner work, in my own, working with, especially with mythological symbols and my dreams. I would writing everything every day. I would sometimes sit there for days, for weeks, just following the thread. Back to the center. Something, is still missing. Something I need to know more. And then I had these huge revelations, one after another. And it was during that time when I was open out the back and things were flowing through me, when I was seeing to the archetypal, is when she had the revelation too. And another thing important to remember is that not everyone will be not afraid. It frightened her in many ways, and I had to be more mindful of her needs and her ability to cope with this. So, for those of you, for instance, who work with clients and you're close with a client, for instance, you're doing a psychology or you're working as an analyst and interpreting dreams for them, and you yourself are open out the back. Remember that if your relationship is really close, your own openness to the collective unconscious, to the psyche, will jump to the other person. So, and it could be the other way around too. For instance, if they are, a real mystic, a real poet, a real artist, and you can see that in their work, that there are open and things, and the archetypes are coming through. You can see it in the words that they're using, in the images, in the symbols, mythological symbols. The mountain, the tree, the flame, like in this dream, the river, the water, all these cave, all these images of the feminine, of the collective unconscious. So this is something to be mindful. It jumps, and it can be either a source of revelation to someone, or if it's too early and they're still frightened, it'll be a source of fear. But in general speaking, what happens is, if you are there for them and if you can explain, you can ground the vision in reality, show to them, this is what I call processing, really, is if you go into the right books, right literature. I used to use Wikipedia, and I would just Google, find in Wikipedia, for instance, Axis Mundi or the Cosmic Axis, and start to show all these images, that they are not something that to be afraid of. It's not something that it's only to be found within you, but it's actually to be found within the entire humanity. And that was the revelation. that she had at the top of the mountain, that she's not an outside, single, separate thing in this life, that she is part of this community of humanity, of this archetypal level on which we are all one. All people standing together, holding hands, regarding of the color or races. Now, mind you, I never said anything like this to her before, because like I said, she was afraid. Yet the dreams, spontaneous of itself, showed to her really the highest revelation, the enlightenment, the destiny of her life, the unity of all life, the oneness of all life. This is exactly the same dream that Black Elk, the shaman, the healer of the Sioux Nation, a North American Indian nation, he had at, you know, he was only 9 years old, and he had this great vision where he ended up traveling to the top of the mountain, to the, you know, to the most inward center, the cosmic axis, and there he had the vision of the tree around which he saw the hoop of his nation, part of all the other hoops of all the nations. So the unity of life, this is the highest revelation.